Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk a little bit about Elrond and what some of our models are making of its more recent price action. If you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there. So I got a request to talk about Elrond recently. It's one that we hadn't talked about for a little bit. So I figured, why not? Let's go ahead and talk about EGLD, a little bit about what it's doing, what our models are thinking about what they are seeing. So if you're not familiar with the UDPI, upside downside potential indicator, it's our risk indicator here at the channel. So high values, red, deep red, high risk, green, deep green is a low risk. And you see that over time, done a good job of identifying these kind of high risk points that have been, these kind of topping out points where distribution's been advantageous, as well as these low risk points where acquisition has been advantageous. And what you'll notice is that we're really kind of in the same kind of general zone right now. And so if we look over at just the raw output of the model, we can see this quite clearly, right? So we were down below -4, just now, as we really kind of fell off during the depths of this bear market, at least the depths so far. And the last time that we hit that was actually the March 2020 crash. And then, of course, we know what followed after that. More or less, Elrond went on this explosive bull market all the way until it set its all-time high, and now it's been in kind of a more or less down-only mode until we've gotten down here. Don't know yet if this is the bottom, right? We don't know if the crypto market has bottomed yet, but it very well could have. It's possible. And certainly when we look at the risk level for EGLD, it's back down at kind of the previous bottom. But again, I'm not going to call the bottom. I don't know. I think especially for something like EGLD or Elrond, with this price action, it's going to be a lot dependent on the broader crypto market. I don't think Elrond is just going to go on some crazy tear while the rest of the market is tanking. So I think we're going to have to watch that and see how healthy the rest of the market stays to see how healthy Elrond can stay. But certainly, what we've seen so far is that if past is any indication of the future, these are the kind of levels that you'd expect to see near kind of the bottom of a bearish trend. So again, not going to call it the bottom, but it would certainly not shock me if this ends up being the bottom. We'll have to wait and see. But if we're looking into the future, then what we can see is that, we have moved up to around -3 right now on the long-term UDPIs. This is reactive moves that play out over months, so it's a little more long-term in its focus. So there's still plenty of upside in the kind of the longer-term perspective that the model seems as being reasonable. And so, it's one of those things where, if the past is any indication of the future, this seems like kind of one of those big generational buying opportunities. Of course, not financial advice, you make your own opinion. And of course, also with the caveat that assumes that we're not going to see some horrible collapse in the stock market and then crypto goes down with it and everything that crypto's ever done kind of gets thrown out the window. So that's what we're seeing right now. So it would not shock me, if the worst of the bear is behind EGLD and frankly the rest of the crypto market, but also is certainly possible, and I'm not going to discount the possibility that we could see more downside from here, depending what happens on the macro picture. So I also wanted to show the short-term UDPI that's reactive to moves that play out over days to weeks, so much shorter in its time focus, just to see what it thinks of this recent kind of move back up that EGLD has been making ever since the lows down here. And you can see it has moved, the short-term UDPI has moved up higher than the long-term. We are now above -2. But certainly that's not all that overextended, right? And so really, if EGLD decides to run soon, let's say that the broader crypto market continues its rally, and then EGLD is one of the ones that catches a bid and really starts to rally, there'd be plenty of room that would be reasonable, right? If we look at these prior kind of bear market rallies that we had here back earlier on this year, we really got up closer to ones, a little bit below 1 here and a little bit above 1 here before getting rejected. So it wouldn't, that could end up being a target that I'd look for on the short-term UDPI if we really started ripping. But who knows? We don't know if that's going to happen yet. But that's just something to look at. And again, in the short term, it thinks that should EGLD decide to run, there's plenty of room for that to happen. But again, that's going to depend on a lot of other factors that are difficult to know. But should that happen, there's plenty of room to the upside. And if we look at some of our trend indicators, they're also suggesting that having a bullish outlook here is quite reasonable. So this is the market direction classifier, or MDC. If you're not familiar, it just assesses the asset's price action, creates a critical level that it's watching, where if the asset can stay above that level, it's bullish. Drops below, that's bearish. You see the MDC does a good job of generally tracking these bigger, kind of broader trends that EGLD has seen throughout its history, really catching these big parabolic moves and then getting you out for the worst of the downside as well. And you'll notice that we just flipped green on the MDC. You know, we had kind of flirted with it, dropped below, and now we kind of more decisively broken back to the upside. And so the critical level that the MDC is watching is $55 or around $56. So obviously we're trading good amount, decent amount above that right now. And so really, as long as the price stays above this level, the MDC is going to remain bullish. But if we drop back below, it'll turn bearish again. Now, this is a dynamic level. It's going to be changing, and I would expect it to probably actually start coming up with the price at some point in the not too distant future. So this will be changing, but right now that's what it is looking at. So from the MDC's perspective, having a bullish outlook right now is totally reasonable because it thinks that there's some strength that EGLD is showing here, breaking above that critical level. And there's another trend indicator we have at the channel that's giving a similar view. That's the trend confidence indicator, or TCI. So with this model, it's basically telling you how confident should you be in a given trend. You know, is a trend reversal likely coming soon? And what's different about this between the MDC is that this model is designed to be more twitchy. It's trying to really front run moves as much as it possibly can. You'll see it do that pretty well, right? Like if you look at here coming off of this move up into 2021, you can see the MDC or the TCI flipping green, flipping bullish. So anything above 0 is bullish. You know, well before that move really took off, kind of giving an early warning that, hey, you know, there's some strength building here. Maybe it's going to start moving soon. Same with the summer of 21 as well. You know, it broke up before we really went on that crazy tear. And it just broke above again as well. In fact, it actually broke up above all the way kind of back here. It's had a bullish outlook on EGLD ever since, and actually kind of setting in new highs in its kind of confidence, even above some of these previous points. So from the TCI's perspective, it's also reasonable to be bullish here. And it's actually watching, it has its own critical level that it generates. So that's one thing we can do with this model. We can probe it, see what that critical level is. It's watching $46. So it's actually, you know, going to be more forgiving for EGLD. You know, it could allow EGLD to fall further before flipping bearish than the MDC would. But there's confluence there, right? Both the TCI and the MDC have flipped bullish on EGLD, suggesting that having a bullish disposition is reasonable right now. Now, again, just because we're in the bullish territory right now doesn't mean that, you know, we have to go ripping to the upside, right? We don't know exactly how far this upside is going to go, and it's possible that we've already seen it, although, you know, who knows? Anything could happen. But overall, what these models can tell you is that kind of overall, when we look across them, you know, being bullish on EGLD right now is very reasonable from both the MDC and the TCI's perspective. And should EGLD really decide to rip, there's a decent amount of room that I think would be realistic from the short-term UDPI's perspective for it to go. And so really then what the question becomes is, you know, can the rest of the crypto market stay healthy long enough for EGLD to start doing that? And can there be enough demand coming back into EGLD to really send it up? You know, for example, I think if a lot of other alt L1s were to suddenly catch a big bid and start ripping, I think EGLD would go along with them. We haven't really seen that happen yet. You know, ETH has been rallying, but that's really based on kind of the merge and a lot of things around that. While the other L1s, you know, they've been generally going up ever since kind of what's so far been the local bottom. But we haven't seen that mania like we saw back in the latter part of last year, for example, with alternative layer ones just going nuts, like when, you know, EGLD set in its all-time high back here. So it'd be something interesting to watch. And so my kind of overall takeaway here is that, you know, watching EGLD closely makes a lot of sense right now. You know, the TCI is green, the MDC is green, suggesting that being bullish is reasonable. There's plenty of room it could move up on the short-term UDPI, and not to say anything of the long-term UDPI, which is even more potential upside. And so what I'm just personally going to be watching these assets very closely, because I think that should they decide to, they could really run. And I think that's just what we're going to have to see. And so, you know, part of it comes in just what happens to the broader markets, but certainly one that I'm going to be watching closely. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there.